It wouldn't be a Made in Abyss episode if it didn't have something very disturbing happening within its episode. So, can we take a few minutes to talk about that? So, we had a scene with Riko almost dying and Reg just saving her. We have a scene where Riko and Nanachi's hair is cut off and stolen in the middle of the night and then shoved into a place that should never be shoved into. Then we have them entering into a building that has very odd looking textures, like fleshy looking textures with bones hanging from the ceiling, and then you're introduced to a bunch of amalgamation of creatures that look very much like Nanachi but more messed up, basically looking like something out of Bone Drew's experiments. So what an episode, honestly. What an episode of Made in Abyss, and I think anyone that is anime only has no idea what's going to happen. They're probably just looking at this episode like, oh my goodness, like, we just got into, like, the 6th layer, and we're already seeing some really disturbing stuff, which makes a lot of sense. So let's just start at the very beginning. The overall introduction, the presentation of the 6th layer, a layer that barely anyone has seen. Anyone that has seen it has never returned to the surface, and if they've tried to send a message, which we saw from Riko's team in this episode, sometimes that message will just never reach to the surface, and nobody will truly know about what is really in the 6th layer and even lower down. So this is a really good episode to just showcase the unforeseen, something that I think many of us have basically been excited to see, because obviously the 1st, the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, and even the 5th layer has been explored. Yes, there might be some unknowns in those layers that people are unaware of, but overall those layers have been kind of explored. People know what to expect from each individual layer up to the 5th. So, when you get to the 6th layer, the layer that you need a white whistle to be able to go down into it, that leads up for question what is really down there, because obviously they have a map, they have a little sketch, basically saying what's potentially down there, what they're called, like the Golden City, etc., the capital of the Unreturned, but you don't really know exactly what it looks like unless you've seen it for yourself, or there's footage and all that. So, this episode is a sense of mystery, wonder, adventure, and it perfectly encompasses that feeling, because I feel like one of the big reasons or draws that people love Made in Abyss is the adventurous nature of it, because diving into the unknown, the abyss itself, and not knowing what to expect and what's going to be inside of it, and what dangers and blessings you're going to see within the pit of the abyss. So it's a really good episode because, once again, it's uncharted territory. You don't really know what to expect. The characters have no idea what to expect. So it's a great episode. I love the presentation of it. Now, in terms of the anime's depiction of it, I love getting to see the design of this spirally creature that is able to apparently resist the abyss's curse. Talk more about that in a second. And then we got stuff with just the geothermal vents and the explosions and just how dangerous it is and all that. So once again, that tower you see at the end of the episode that they enter into, it looks very tribal. There's a lot to take away from this episode and just the introduction of it, and I'm just so excited to see more of this arc unfold in an anime format. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, okay? I think a lot of people are going to be talking about it, and that is the creature design. So, Made in Abyss, I think one of the big well-known things about it, especially from Season 1, was the artistic design of the creatures. For instance, if you go back to, like, Season 1 of Made in Abyss, and you look at, just the creature designs, they were very incredible. Like, when you look at the creature designs, you're like, holy crap, like, it's insane to see creature designs that don't look like CG. So when you actually take a look at some of the designs in this episode, you're like, that's a lot of CG. And I want to kind of clarify a few things so everyone has an understanding. So apparently the original character designer for the anime left, and they're not working on Season 2 of Made in Abyss, which is very unfortunate, because obviously if that character designer was still around, we would probably get to see non-CGI creatures throughout Season 2. But obviously, because that individual's gone, and it would be very hard to replace someone as talented as that, we're left with CG. Now, once again, CG isn't inherently bad, okay? I feel like there's just such a stigmatism around the term CGI that people instantly assume it's bad. And I'm not gonna lie that the weird robotish movements you see towards the end with the CGI, it definitely doesn't look good. I will be honest. However, there is other segments throughout, like the spirally creature and all that, and other little creatures. We see CGI, and it's not that bad. For instance, it's actually decent. And so, CGI can be done okay. It just really depends on how far they want to take it and how realistic they want to make it look. Most of the time, though, CGI is used as a way to cut cost and just be cheap and, cut corners in terms of movement, etc. So we'll see. It can be done well, but we'll have to see as, the season ramps up and we get more of the creature designs as we carry on. But with that out of the way, let's actually talk about the artwork, since I'm already talking about CGI. In terms of artwork, I really like the designs. I like the colors. The color palettes is very nice. I love just the way, like for instance, as I said earlier, entering into the tower is a very fleshy look. You have the different sections around the geothermal vents. They look like sulfur type color, like yellowish or orangish. There's a lot of nice color designs. Even the creatures have very nice color designs, and I think that is spot on. It's one of the other big draws of Made in Abyss is the colors of the characters in the world, because you're going into unknown. Adventure is about seeing things that are crazy and different, and seeing different colored creatures and environment is definitely going to spark someone's interest. So I love the overall art and the style of it. Nothing really bad in that type of content in terms of Made in Abyss so far. Now obviously that can change, but I'm willing to bet you it's probably going to be solid. Now, let's talk about the story. In terms of the story and what this episode obviously is doing, it's setting up this this tribal community, probably the capital of the Unreturned that we've heard about, and they're doing something. They have started something with Rico and Reg and Nanachi, because the white whistle that Rico obtained in the middle of the movie, it got stolen. And they have it, and it said briefly at the end of the episode that it was taken to someone that knows how to, do something with it. It's not really fully clarified or dived into, but it's taken and said that they can do something with it. So we don't know. It could be for a good reason, a bad reason, who knows. But one of the big things is that they got those characters to go into that town. Now, it's briefly also stated with narration that people that go to there and then try to leave it cannot leave it being still human. Basically, you will turn into a monster. So this kind of implies that it's possible that Rico is going to turn into something like Nanachi, like a monstrous being, because obviously as you probably go deeper and deeper to the Abyss, things are probably going to start happening to your body. You're going to start changing. We've seen the effects on the body of different characters throughout our journey of Made in Abyss from Season 1 to where we're at now in Season 2. So because of that, it's entirely possible that Rico could be turned into some form of monstrosity as we get lower into the Abyss. So we'll have to see where that goes. But one thing, though, is that this arc is definitely setting up for something huge, and I mean that when I say it is setting up for something huge. It is definitely going to, I think, blow everybody away, and going to be a very interesting plot in terms of just everything that this anime season, not just Made in Abyss, but this anime season can actually offer. Now, besides that, we also need to talk about the mysterious individual that's obviously following Rico, Reg, and Nanachi. This mysterious being obviously looks a lot like, Nanachi's old friend. You could just see by the way the overall design is, looks like a blob-like creature. Obviously, we don't get to see the whole body structure, but it implies that it probably is something like Nanachi's friend, but once again, we'll have to see. We don't know if that's an enemy, ally, etc., and what was really going on with that message in terms of the city symbol. We don't know if that was a good thing, a bad thing, etc., because obviously, as you go lower and lower down into the Abyss, there's probably going to be different customs for individuals in different towns, because, culture changes, society changes, and it's also been heavily implied since the very beginning that the lower you go down into the Abyss, the more time is affected, and more time potentially slows down. So, example, on the first layer of the Abyss, you might feel like maybe a few minutes, or slower than on the surface. Like, whatever is 10 minutes on the surface might feel like maybe 5 minutes on the first layer. And then that effect lengthens as you get lower and lower. We've already been shown a few effects of this, but you kind of assume with the 6th layer being kind of uncharted territory, etc., that time is definitely sped or slowed down drastically. Basically to the point to where maybe what may be 1,000 years on the surface might be maybe only 100 years on the 6th layer. lair. Who knows? We don't really have the actual accurate time, because obviously who's going to be able to really cross-reference and know that unless you were able to go back up to the surface. So yeah, that is a big point. But we do know that time definitely works very differently, and so it's entirely possible that the people that have been down there maybe haven't really, to their eyes, been down there that long. Maybe to them, they've been down there for 50 years, 100 years, maybe 500 years. But to people on the surface, if they were to see it, they're like, it's been about maybe 4,000, 10,000 years, who really knows? And we've also been hinted at the fact that maybe the abyss gets larger and wider, and maybe a new layer appears every so often, every 2,000 years, with some of the information we got in the movie, but also with Season 1's conclusion. So, you can kind of assume that it's entirely possible that even some of the inhabitants that are in the 6th layer maybe was on the 5th layer at one point, and now they can't go back up because obviously the abyss is growing. Food for thought there. So it's a really good episode. I love this episode of Made in Abyss. I think a lot of people are probably really enjoying this, and one of the things I do want to kind of touch up on and talk about before I wrap everything up is, one of the things is the creatures not being affected by the abyss, which I think is a really interesting detail, basically showing that a lot of these abyssal creatures can just navigate the abyss with no problem. So if it really wanted to, it theoretically could potentially go up to the surface on the 1st layer if it could. That's scary to think about. And then on another end as well, I want to talk about that opening song. The opening song, I'm not going to dive too deep into it, spoiler reasons, but I think that it's a really good opening song. It's an emotional opening song, very good, and I like it. I would dare say it's one of the best openings of this entire anime season, and there's a lot of good openings from this anime season, so I'll just let you kind of process that. But okay, I'm going to leave the video there. Thank you so much for watching. If I gave you any form of entertainment, enjoyment, etc., please do leave me a like on this video. It does help me out a lot. Helps with the algorithm, like I always say. Allows my videos to appear in YouTube feeds more. It allows you guys to be notified more. Even if you hit the bell icon sometimes, you guys don't get notified. So if you do want to help me out, hit that like button. Helps. And also leave a comment if you enjoyed the episode, or even if you hated the episode. Well, that, guys, be safe, stay healthy. Chibi out.